Khamzat is really known for his relentless pressure. He's an elite grappler as well. What can you exploit against him?
Yeah, I mean, Khamzat obviously world-class wrestling, grappling, but you know, at this level of the sport, everybody's world-class. You know, this is not grappling or wrestling, this is MMA. And that's where I'm going to exploit, is being the best in MMA. We're not fighting for a wrestling title, we're not fighting for a grappling title. We are fighting for the UFC.
An orthodox style, and it's one that Khamzat has actually never faced before. So how will that benefit you?
Yeah, I think, you know, with my style, that is a very, like I say, it's a very controversial style in the UFC. Unlike anything that most people have ever seen, it's only a benefit because it's proven to be effective. But then again, how do you prepare for that? How do you find somebody to mimic that? And that's at the end of the day almost my niche. You know, it's hard, close to impossible to prepare for me because I have this unique style that. Where do you find somebody?
My toughest opponent to date? Well, that's a very open-ended question because there were fights that were the hardest for me. I have to say probably Adesanya was the best guy I faced in his specific area. Probably the fight I was the most nervous for. Just in terms of how good he is. He can catch you with anything, anytime. You know, all the time I spent looking up to him and studying him because he was the benchmark. Knowing what he's capable of. I think he is the best guy I've faced, and obviously if you watch that fight, it was one hell of a fight. It was a tough night at the office for both of us. And but then when you just go on pure toughness, you have to go with either Brad Tavares or Sean Strickland. Just the amount of damage they were able to take and just keep going. Israel Adesanya, he did this uppercut that I just in the fight couldn't figure out. Usually people catch me with something, I'm like, and I figure out, okay, I can't. He caught me maybe 3-4 times directly with the same movement, same uppercut right on the nose. And in the fight, it was hard on my nose. And I thought, I just got my nose fixed, you asshole. And I thought, if you broke my nose, bro, after the fight, this is going down. And he just threw that so perfectly. And I've been watching that. And after the fight, I just told my coach, I said, that uppercut he threw, I need to figure out how he did that because he's brilliant. That was brilliant. I couldn't find an answer in the fight. Now I know it because I took a mental note of it, and I think that's very important to take from your opponents and learn from them and future foes, guys coming up. I have an eye on all of these guys because that's how I'm going to stay ahead.
You feeling fatigued in the last round with Dricus?
I don't think so. There was one point in the third round where me and him, we really put it on, and we kind of had this like low-key agreement, like, okay, you're let's chill for a little bit. And then I think round 4 I came out like, cool, bam, 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 and I did that sprawl on him. But again, he's so stubborn because I sprawled on him. Like I literally, he shot, I sprawled, and my hit the back of his head into the mat. It might have rocked him, I don't know. And then, what's his name? Mark Goddard's like, get up. And he's on one knee. And then when he was like, get up. And he finally decided to get up slowly. And I tried to attack him. He just threw. But not to try and hit me. He just threw just to stop my momentum, you know, stop me from coming at him. And yeah, he's a guy that just strong will. Like, yeah, I can respect that.
From dismantling former champions to preparing for an all-out war with Khamzat Chimaev, Dricus Du Plessis isn't exactly losing sleep. But when asked about the toughest opponent he's ever faced, his answer didn't include Khamzat or even sound close. Instead, he took it back to someone with a very different kind of threat, and it tells us a lot.
Dricus submits Izzy in the 4th round via rear naked choke. Rob, I'll let you take the reins. What do you think of this fight?
I think, for starters, Adesanya looked sharp. He looked really good. Okay. I think that was honestly one of the better versions of Adesanya we've seen. Like, he was dangerous. Dricus, mate, how do you sum him up? Dude's tough as nails. He's got ticker and he's got a headspace. Like, he's got the right mind space to go there. Like, he's willing to die on his shield. He is so awkward and cumbersome to watch, man. But he gets it done. He makes it work. Like, mate, like he runs at you, throwing punches like you stole something from him, right? And man, like, it works. Okay, it works. I don't know how else to sum him up, right? Yeah. He's like He would fit perfectly in a pub.
When Dricus thinks about who really challenged him in the octagon, he doesn't talk about pressure or wild pace. He talks about precision. And for that, Israel Adesanya takes the top spot. One moment in particular stuck with him. An uppercut Adesanya kept landing over and over with ridiculous accuracy. Even mid-fight, Dricus couldn't crack the code. Usually he picks up on patterns quickly, but not this time. That shot came clean multiple times, right on the nose, and each time he thought, how is he pulling this off so perfectly? He walked out of that cage knowing he had just been hit with something special. Even afterward, it stuck with him, not just physically, but mentally. He told himself that he had to learn how Adesanya did that, because that kind of brilliance isn't common. That's the kind of thing that forces you to evolve. He doesn't just walk away from fights. He studies them, learns, and keeps his eye on anyone who might bring something sharp like that again.
My toughest opponent to date, well, that's a very open-ended question because there were fights that were the hardest for me. I have to say probably Adesanya was the best guy I faced in his specific area. Probably the fight I was the most nervous for. Just in terms of how good he is. He can catch you with anything, anytime. You know, all the time I spent looking up to him and studying him because he was the benchmark, knowing what he's capable of. I think he is the best guy I've faced, and obviously if you watch that fight, it was one hell of a fight. It was a tough night at the office for.
So now, as the hype builds around Khamzat Chimaev, the contrast is clear. Dricus doesn't sound like a man bracing for his toughest challenge. He's aware of the noise, the aggression, the chaos that Khamzat brings, but he isn't rattled. Because when he talks about real difficulty, he brings up Adesanya's precision or the insane durability of guys like Sean Strickland and Brad Tavares, fighters who either outthought him or just refused to break. Khamzat, he's not fitting into either of those categories. He's dangerous, sure, but Dricus isn't going into this one wondering how to survive. He's going in prepared to dominate. When your toughest test was against someone so technically sharp it forced you to level up mid-fight, a storm like Khamzat feels a lot more manageable.
For both of us. And but then when you just go on pure toughness, you have to go with either Brad Tavares or Sean Strickland, just the amount of damage they were able to.
But it's not just Dricus handing out respect. Israel Adesanya, the man Dricus called his toughest opponent, had a few things to say about him too. And the way he described Dricus, let's just say, he didn't sound surprised that Du Plessis is still giving people problems. Adesanya kept it real. He didn't hype things up, but he made it clear that Dricus is no walk in the park. He talked about how unpredictable the guy is, how he moves in ways that make no sense until they land. And even when things seem off, they still somehow work. There's a mix of confusion and admiration in the way Izzy breaks it down. He even compared Dricus's wild style to a certain type of fighter that keeps evolving with the sport. You can tell Adesanya respects the chaos Dricus brings, and more importantly, how he uses it to his advantage. It's one of those takes that makes you look at the matchup with Khamzat a little differently, because when someone like Adesanya acknowledges how tricky Dricus is to handle, you know there's more to this guy than awkward punches and pressure.
I think Khamzat with DDP will be next. Who knows when that's gonna be?
He does the craziest shit and somehow he lands. Or somehow he'll miss some punches and somehow he'll take down.
He's stubborn, man. It's even funny to watch. I give him all the respect. He's so good at what he does, no matter what. What did I say before? He's the best fighter in the world. But somehow he makes it look good.
Marab's kind of like the same way. Even Bilal.
Nah, Marab strikes better.
It's the mixing of the fight.
Yeah, mixing. In MMA, there's always phases. Like there was a phase where the strikers were on top. So it's a trend. And then people see enough tape. We know how to handle this now. Now we have to reshuffle the deck.
When it came down to other experts, James Lynch leaned toward Dricus, and not just for one reason. He brings up the time Khamzat spent outside the cage and how that kind of break can mess with a fighter's timing. Even if someone's training hard, there's something different about fight speed and sharpness. Lynch seems to think that when you've been away that long, especially without regular high-level competition, it eventually shows, and not in a good way. He also highlights Dricus's recent activity and how staying active helps keep a fighter locked in. That's not just about cardio, it's about comfort and chaos, about knowing what it feels like to get through adversity in real time. And when you're fighting someone who's unpredictable like Khamzat, that kind of recent experience matters even more. What really catches Lynch's attention is the fact that this fight is 5 rounds. He hints that this isn't a matchup where one guy can just come out fast and hope to finish it. Over 5 rounds, the pace changes. You have to be able to adjust, slow things down when needed, and keep finding ways to win even when things aren't going your way. And from what he's seen, Dricus might be better better suited for that kind of grind.
Or anything like that. Both guys very well prepped going into this one here. But let's start first with the current champion, Dricus Du Plessis, as he looks to defend his title here on August 19th. So I mentioned it there. 31 years old, 23-2 record. He's got 9 knockouts, 10 submissions, and 3 decisions. He is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage in this fight. This is a 5-round fight, obviously, with it being for the middleweight title. He's a second-degree black belt in kickboxing, former EFC middleweight and welterweight champion. He's the current middleweight champion in the UFC with 2 successful title defenses. He's the first South African to win a UFC championship. He's got Performance of the Night 2 times and Fight of the Night 2 times. Du Plessis, kind of like his opponent here, has fought in multiple weight classes. Let's go over those. He's fought 19 times at middleweight. He's fought 4 times at welterweight. He's also fought a catchweight of 176. He's had 1 close fight in his career. That was the first Sean Strickland fight. If you go look on MMA decisions right now on the website, that was at UFC 297. It was a split decision win. If you look on the media scorecards there, 13 media members scored the fight for Dricus Du Plessis, 10 media members scored the fight for Sean Strickland. So majority did feel like DDP did enough to get the win.
Michael Bisping thinks the new training with Sam Calavita could change the game for Khamzat. He doesn't dive too deep into how much better Khamzat's gas tank might be, but he does say it might be enough to win the fight. The idea that better conditioning could tip the scales is something he leans into, especially considering how Khamzat's cardio has been a question mark before.
So Chimaev is doing it right now, and I highly suspect that he's going to have an amazingly better gas tank for his next fight. And I think he's going to win because of it. He's going to make the weight better, which in turn is going to make his cardio better, and he's going to train the right way. Now, we all know Khamzat Chimaev is a force of nature. We all know what he does inside the first round. Crush the teeth of Robert Whittaker, ragdolls most people, carries Li Jingliang while talking to Dana White. The man's a force of nature, and we also know that when it gets to rounds 2 and 3, he does start to fade, okay? You know about the fight with Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman.
Makes it clear that what Khamzat does in the early rounds won't be enough this time. This is a 5-rounder, and Bisping doesn't see him blitzing Dricus the way he has with others. He's not convinced that same chaos will work against a champion like Du Plessis. That tells you he sees danger if the fight goes long.
It's a 5-round fight, and I don't think he's going to be able to go out there and do to the champion, Dricus Du Plessis, what he has done to some other people. Of course, couldn't do it to Kamaru Usman, couldn't do it to Gilbert Burns. Probably
later, he circles back to this idea. If Khamzat has really pushed himself in training and fixed the cardio issue, then Bisping believes he probably gets the win. He doesn't stamp it as a sure thing, but you can tell he's leaning toward Khamzat if the gas tank holds up.
Counts according to TJ Dillashaw, he's put in the work.
I highly suspect he's going to have an amazing gas tank for this next fight, and I think he's going to get the win because of it.
According to TJ Dillashaw, he's got a secret weapon. We all know what TJ Dillashaw's secret weapon was back in the day, don't we? Not talking shit about TJ, but he did pop. He did get suspended for EPO, which is a drug. I don't know too much about it. Apparently, gives you increased cardiovascular ability. Makes you a better athlete, if you will. TJ Dillashaw popped off for that one, okay? And I don't think he saw that coming. He got suspended, I think it was 2 years. And he never really rebounded after that. And I'm not talking TJ Dillashaw, that's just the facts. And when he says he's got a secret weapon, I couldn't resist throwing that one in there because he set me up too good. However, Khamzat Chimaev, I don't think he's going to take steroids. I don't think he needs steroids. I don't think he needs performance-enhancing drugs. This man is a force of nature, as I said before.
He ends by questioning the 2-to-1 odds in Khamzat's favor. That's where his prediction feels split. He gets why Khamzat is favored early, but he hints that if Dricus can survive that first wave and stretch the fight out, it might flip in the champ's favor.
The fact that he's the 2-to-1 underdog, I don't know if I agree with that. Now, I understand that Khamzat's going to be a very dangerous threat early. However, you can't be a marathon runner and a sprinter at the same time. Khamzat Chimaev is a sprinter, okay? Whereas other people have more of a style to go longer. Look at some of the most explosive fighters on the roster, okay? They're amazing in the first round. Conor McGregor, for crying out loud, he didn't have the best gas tank going over 5 rounds, but in the first round, holy shit, you were in a lot of trouble. I'm trying to think of some other examples. Vitor Belfort, first and second rounds, he was an issue for everybody. You drag him to deep water if you could do that. If he wasn't on all the steroids under the sun, if you could do that, then obviously he started to slow down. So Khamzat Chimaev, I just think he's built a certain way. But if Dricus Du Plessis can drag him out to the later rounds, I still think it favours Dricus. And the fact that Khamzat is a 2-1 favourite.
Now let's hear from the one fighter everyone mentions when talking about Khamzat, Robert Whittaker. He's faced Chimaev in the cage, felt his pressure firsthand, and still he's not fully sold on the hype. When asked about the upcoming title fight between Khamzat and Dricus Du Plessis, Whittaker called it a tough one to predict but leaned toward Dricus. He recognized Khamzat's early danger, the way he explodes right out of the gate and drags opponents to the ground fast. But he didn't ignore what happens if that early finish doesn't come. In Whittaker's view, Dricus becomes a bigger threat the longer the fight drags on. He pointed out that Khamzat's pace tends to dip after the first round, and in a 5-round fight, that could tilt things in Dricus's favor. This wasn't just a casual opinion. It came from someone who's faced both fighters and knows exactly how dangerous each one is.
Your opinion on the championship fight that's happening in August, Dricus versus Khamzat. What do you think is going to happen, and who do you think is going to get their hands raised in middleweight?
It's tricky. I think the favourite would have to be Dricus, just because, I think the favourite would have to be Dricus. The only things I can really say with any sort of certainty is that Chimaev will get Dricus to the mat. But if Chimaev doesn't finish Dricus there, I find it hard for him to win. I think the longer the fight goes, Dricus is more favourable. Chimaev has outstanding first-round finishes, but, every fight that's gone the distance has been close.
Brendan Schaub took a completely different route when it came to his prediction. On the Jackson podcast, Schaub didn't just hype Khamzat, he dissected his game like a puzzle. He sees Khamzat not as a wild, reckless fighter, but as someone whose entire approach is scarily complete. From the way he mixes his striking with explosive takedowns, to how he controls opponents the second he gets a grip, Schaub made it clear, this isn't just raw aggression, it's calculated chaos. And when it comes to Dricus, Schaub thinks he's never seen anything like this. Sure, he's fought tough guys, but no one with Khamzat's kind of suffocating pressure. The way Khamzat shoots from a distance, closes the gap in a blink, and just doesn't let go. That's something Dricus hasn't really dealt with before.
Khamzat's wrestling is
you know what
crazy.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's I'm a huge DDP fan. I wasn't always sold on him because his technique's a little unorthodox. He's a little wild. So I'm like, something's gonna catch up with him, but it hasn't. That motherfucker just wins. He's so tough. That's why, to me, like, this is such a great fucking fight. Such a good fight.
But the way Khamzat
different animal
kind of puts together his wrestling, puts together his kind of conditioning, his striking, but the way he puts that together in the cage, who has DDP fought that's even close to that style, that explosive, shoot from 10 feet out, grab you, not let go till he gets what he wants?
That's why it's a great fight.
Oh,
because DDP hasn't fought anybody like Khamzat, and Khamzat hasn't fought anybody like DDP. And
But Schaub wasn't all in on Khamzat either. He brought up the lingering doubts from that Usman fight. Even though Khamzat won, fans noticed the dip in his output. If that had been 5 rounds, things might have gotten uncomfortable. Whether it was health issues or just pacing, Schaub says people haven't forgotten. Still, he's not convinced that version of Khamzat is walking into the cage this time. He believes we're looking at a sharper, more conditioned version of him, the kind of version that's not going to gas trying to get a finish. He even acknowledged what Dricus did to Whittaker, saying it showed how wild things can swing when he's in rhythm, but he emphasized this isn't Whittaker, this is Khamzat, and that changes everything.
Look at Khamzat's fights. Again, this can be the knock on him, not from me, from the fan base. It's going to be Kamaru Usman. If that was 5 rounds, he probably would have lost that one. Again, he was dealing with a health issue. His fight against Gilbert Burns, that was 5 rounds. That was kind of back and forth. If he fights like that, which he's not going to, their odd makers are going to sway towards DDP. But again, his fight against Robert Whittaker, you're like, what the fuck was that? Broke his jaw.
So with all these takes, from Bisping's concerns about cardio to Schaub's breakdown of Khamzat's relentless style, this fight is shaping up to be way more than just another main event. It's a style clash, a pressure test, and maybe even a legacy-defining moment for both guys. Drop your predictions and takes in the comments below. Who do you see walking away with the win? Let's hear it.